call to order a regular meeting of the Board of Selectmen today, December 16th, 2019. The first item on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next item is approval of minutes. The first minutes in your packet are from our last regular meeting on November 18th.
Oh. You said first minute.
We'll do another meeting?
Correct.
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve. We approve the minutes for the November 18th, 2019 meeting as submitted.
I'll second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
No opposed? Motion carries. The second was for our meeting December 2nd. It was immediately following the town meeting. Make a motion to accept.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
Aye. This was December 2nd?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, abstain.
After the-
Yeah, thanks.
It was approved. Motion carries. Present to speak, is there anyone present to speak? So, okay, seeing none, I'll move on to correspondence. So list of correspondence in your packet, and they're all available in the selectman's office. All right, as far as the status report, we did put out the assistant land use agent position. We extended it so that we could, we received one application and we can put it on the professional site so that it had not gone on the first time. So we're looking at moving forward. It closed last Friday. We're looking at moving forward with interviews. Hopefully, Robin's working on setting them up, so potentially next week. Do that. So Public Works. So Troy's here. Can you read from your list? Do you want to?
It does, yeah, it's fine if you want it.
So things Troy shared with us about what's going on at Public Works. The crew has been plowing and sanding the roads. As you know, it's been snowing and icing despite the early of it. Roadside mowing is still going on some mostly heavy brush areas. They moved snow at the town green for the tree lighting ceremony. They checked ice dams over roads and salted the roads, cleaned the garage, fixed mailboxes that were damaged by plow and not heavy snow. So the town is responsible for anything that's actually physically hit by a plow if it's hit by heavy snow, as you know, unfortunately. So we have a little bit of both. Last time we had some that were hit by a plow. Pick up trash at River Road, installed a new motor for the furnace here at the TOV. Troy facilitated that. Was done by work of contractor, so M4, who we've hired out for our that facilities work, came out and fixed that, so the motor's working for now.
For now.
We're still recommending a new furnace, so we'll be looking for that during CIP. They removed a couple of hazardous trees on Village Hill, installed a new polycast spreader on the F450, fixed many repairs on plow trucks, and I think Troy's going to touch on that in a few minutes. And we had a leak in the kitchen and out into the large meeting room upstairs, and so they removed shoveled some ice and snow off of that. We had the snow and then all that heavy rain last week, so we had a couple of issues.
And I did call the contractor who installed that roof, and I still haven't heard back.
Okay.
So there is obviously a leak somewhere, but
Right.
that's to be determined where
So
exactly it
They
is.
came out and did that on Monday, and then we had referendum Tuesday, so because of the referendum, he didn't go in and clean up. There's going to be tiles that are going to need to be replaced, probably some insulation that will need to be replaced, so we'll go in and look at that upcoming soon. So besides those regular tasks, I think Troy wants to talk to us about an ongoing concern.
We need a new plow truck. I've reached out to different contractors. I had actually 2 people that were interested. Then the hourly wage wasn't enough. One didn't have a truck. And now it's to the point where we're not gonna be able to clear the roads if a truck goes down. This afternoon, we had one of our trucks actually having a little electrical problem. We ended up getting that fixed. If that truck wasn't fixed tonight, that section wouldn't be plowed. We'd have to do it with pickups. And our pickups are in a stage of needing repair too. So we really need to do something now with the new plow truck. I've looked for used trucks. The problem buying used is a good used truck is still a fairly good chunk of money. And it's not, I don't feel that it's worth to buy something used. You might as well go new where there's a warranty. So.
So the letter that you have here, I think you all have a copy of it, we'll go to Board of Finance, hopefully we can have a discussion about that this week, is to replace the 19-year-old spare truck. So, but really it would be replacing a current truck we're using, that's in the plan, right? Is it replace that truck and that truck would become the spare, so the spare?
Spare would, yes, yeah. Well, yes, exactly. The truck that needs to be replaced would replace the 19-year-old truck, so there still would be a spare truck. Right now, currently, there is no spare truck. There's nothing.
So in CIP, as we know, the first year is the only thing guaranteed, that's guaranteed funding. And so in year 2, which would be this upcoming 2021 fiscal year, on last year's plan, there was replacement of a new truck. So what Trish is saying is that we move that forward to now. And it's not something we budgeted for. It wouldn't be the full cost of the truck because we would lease like we have our other trucks. So it would be a smaller amount. That first payment would be what we pay in this fiscal year. It wouldn't be as though, unless the town decided it wanted to pay in full approximately $160,000 she's quoting here. You would lease it, so every year we'd incur the lease payment. So that would be the dollar impact now. I can tell you that when I got the call earlier today that a well-functioning truck was now down, and knowing that we're expecting weather this evening, going into tomorrow morning, there's a lot of stress, and to me it's a public safety issue. I don't know that we could adequately clear our roads in a timely fashion if we don't have a working vehicle. And there hasn't been a storm yet where we haven't had excessive repairs.
Right.
We do need to keep in mind that lately we've been pulling from the capital reserve fund more and more, and it's beginning to add up, so we're gonna have to start taking a hard look at anything we do out of there.
I couldn't agree more. I don't know that any of us thought we'd be in a position where we wouldn't have had a contractor, and therefore our spare truck would really just be a spare truck. Right now it's being used as a full-time plow truck, and it's December 16th, and we've had
This will be the number 6, I think.
Number six.
And that's not including plow, I mean, they've been out on a sanding trip too, so that's including all the storms.
So we're already, I think the predictions are right, we're in for a pretty rough winter.
Can I ask a question about, so one of the issues is that we don't have any contractors. You said that there was an issue with funding. Does it make sense to consider increasing, or the hourly rate? Does it make sense to consider increasing the hourly rate to get a contractor with their own truck versus to purchase our own truck and still need a driver?
Yes and no. I mean, right now the state, I spoke with somebody that the state right now is paying $180 an hour for just the truck and the plow and the driver. They're paying $265 an hour for the truck, the plow, and to haul salt, to spread. So you'd have to bump up to make it worth a while. And I spoke with a gentleman the other day, and he said, what about $200 an hour? And our contractor right now is making $125. So we would have to boost him up to the 200 if that would be, at that level, to be a level playing field for other contractors.
So I guess the question is to think about mathematically, how many storms, so if we're talking about spending $160,000 on a truck, and not that this is a permanent long-term solution, because if we need new trucks, eventually we're gonna have to buy new trucks because they will just stop working at some point.
Yeah.
But again, for the question of today, is there a way that we can consider how long, like what's the cost benefit analysis, right, of purchasing a new truck now versus increasing our rates for a couple of years until we get to the part where the money is actually there in the CIP? Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So could we buy ourselves a year of not spending $160,000 today, or starting that lease payment today, and bump up that rate so that we have more chances of getting a contractor with their own truck?
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately now a lot of contractors, are assigned to other places, with that. So I mean, I don't know if I could just say, hey, we're paying $200 an hour, I need a we could put something out into the paper,
Right,
maybe
we need to go out to bid.
it would have to go out to bid again, yeah. So that's something that we could do.
I mean, I would encourage that be considered, because even if we were to discuss today, yes, we wanted to pursue this, we're not gonna get this truck tomorrow, right?
I could. No, it's,
Well,
I
but you
could.
can't.
You could
I could physically.
take
Right,
it, the
exactly.
steps.
Step, but I mean,
the
that's
steps
right.
required
Yeah.
wouldn't allow that.
So like, you've seen how quickly we were, right? So the fact of the matter is, we might be through the season regardless,
By the time.
anything gets approved.
Yeah.
So in that sense, we might need to do this anyway
Right.
and increase our rates
Mhm.
if we need, because we can't have, every time there's a flake of snow, we have to cancel everything because nobody can leave their driveways.
That's exactly, yes.
Right?
And our routes are approximately
16 to 17 miles.
17 miles
yeah,
per route.
yeah.
So you take a route away and double
Yeah,
up.
you're
and
double,
It can be significant on a large storm. So I know you didn't share with us the specs of the truck, but I understand that you're gonna share that with,
Yeah, but
unfortunately, there's no.
I apologize, I came in at 6:31, which you had already gone through it. I'd have the opportunity to speak where we had gone through it.
Unfortunately, we've already gone past that and we're at a new agenda item that wouldn't, right now isn't allowing the president to speak.
So you started the meeting early.
No, we started at 6:30.
I came in at 6:31, you were already into it.
I can tell you we started at 6:30.
I walked in and came down and looked at my phone. It said 6:31.
So you have the specs for the truck
Yeah.
that you plan to share
yeah.
with Board of Finance. It's, I hear the need for it, and I see the need for it on a daily basis. John, I hear what you're saying, and it seems like we're constantly saying we need more, we need more. This is one of those that, if that plow truck goes down and we can't maintain public safety on our road, we've got a bigger problem on our hands. So I think it's important that we pursue another avenue here. We also know at CIP that there is a problem with replacing trucks. There's a bottleneck there. Anyone who's participated in CIP, we've seen that. We're going to run into that problem, but we cannot not do our due diligence. To your suggestion, Liza, I think it's worth looking into. I don't know if the people Troy spoke to. I have to look into the process of, how we would need to go about that, and we have to put out a whole new bid. It was a 2-year bid for plowing that we accepted one contractor from, and with the amount of money that was budgeted for contractors, I'm sure it was based on the average of what we paid our contractors over the last 5 years, and that was based around that $120 rate, because that's about what we've been paying. We know that could be plus or minus depending on the number of storms that we have, and because typically we wouldn't output the entire 160,000, we'd be looking at the cash output would be just the lease payment, and then I believe some fees would be much less than this, but would it equal what we would have to pay to go from $120 a contractor to say around $200 a contractor, and that might be a wash. But again, it's dependent on the number of storms that we have.
Yeah, and I know that that can't be foreseen, right?
Right.
But again, even if we decide to do this, and there was 100%, buy-in, it's still not gonna happen before, obviously for tomorrow, but
Right.
next week and the week after, and we're in winter now.
Right,
so-
well, and if we remember anything from the lease process with the roadside mower, we know that there's probably at least a month leeway you have to put out an RFP for banks. And so there's a lengthy process there, so it is not a simple process
Right.
to go through. So we'll be asking for this to be on the Board of Finance agenda to have the discussion there. Are you,
I just have a question on this topic, if you don't mind.
does the board mind? I actually would rather we, stay to the conversation at the board level and those that,
Well, we generally,
we do generally, and I think we've seen in our past meetings that our meetings have gotten a little bit out of control by having all of this open conversation and not able to do the business we're able to do, so, yes.
I kind of like that way of running things. Well, you're the boss.
So, anything else you want to share with us?
Nope,
You have
that's it.
anything else that's breaking that needs to be replaced?
No.
Remember he said that? Today.
Today.
Write that down, today. Okay. New business. All right, we have several appointments in rec department, zoning board of appeals, and animal control officer. So I will start with, I'll make a motion to reappoint Joe Colangelo as a regular member of the Recreation Department, effective December 16th, 2019, expiring December 15th probably?
No,
Okay.
it's the first.
December 14th, 2022.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
I move to reappoint Mike Panati as a regular member of the Recreation Commission effective December 16th, 2019, expiring December 14th, 2022.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. I move to reappoint Rocco Petrella as a regular member of the Recreation Commission effective December 16th, 2019, expiring December 14th, 2022.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Zoning Board of Appeals. So the first name you see there, Anne Marie Poole, she actually had resigned, does not wish to be reappointed.
Yeah.
She resigned in 2018, but the letter went to the chairman of the board
It did not go to
to
the,
go to us.
So we're not.
we're not reappointing her.
Okay.
Right, so when I skip over, I'll let you know why.
Just saw that.
And that came up about, I don't know,
It's about
about 10 minutes before we came down here. So I move to reappoint John Rupp as a regular member of the Zoning Board of Appeals, effective December 30th, 2019, expiring December 30, 2024.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I move to reappoint Richard Maloney as a regular member of Zoning Board of Appeals, effective December 30, 2019, expiring December 30th, 2022.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. I move to reappoint Bill Bland as a regular member of the Zoning Board of Appeals, effective December 30th, 2019, expiring December 30th, 2021.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And last appointment, I move to reappoint Tina Binheimer as WIllington Animal Control Officer, effective, January 1st, 2020, expiring December 31st, 2020.
Second.
Any discussion? If none, except to say Tina, once again, continues to do a fantastic job. As animal control officer.
I agree with that.
No other discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Is it on? Yeah, sorry.
Motion carries. And I want to thank all of those members of the park commissions and zoning board of appeals, as well as Tina, for stepping up and offering their service to our town. All right, one refund. I move to refund VW Credit Leasing LTD a certificate of correction in the amount of $45.74.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. The next item on the agenda is discussion of the website. This was at the request of John.
I just wanted to say, after the last town meeting and the big brouhaha on that, a letter appeared on the town website and on the Facebook from the Board of Selectmen explaining why we were no longer having a town meeting about the school building committee. And it was from the Board of Selectmen. I never saw the letter before it went out. And it also said that the Board of Selectmen had unanimously voted to have the town, the school building committee, and if I remember correctly, I did not vote for that. I voted to bring that question to town meeting, which I think there's a big difference there. So I want to make it clear that that letter was not from the complete Board of Selectmen, and that I did not, I was not part of that unanimity.
The letter was signed by myself, and we can go back and check the minutes. I believe this board did unanimously vote to establish a school building committee.
We can go back and check the minutes, but it's still, the letter said from the Board of Selectmen. That's all I have to say on that, is let's be a little careful with that. That was a political letter anyway, which I'm not sure should have been on the town website.
Or sharing facts with the town as they were at the time. That's, you are certainly entitled to your opinion on the matter, John.
And
it was signed only by myself as the first one sharing information so that residents understood.
And your version of the facts as I have my version of the facts.
Thank you for sharing that, John. As like in real time, this meeting started 5 minutes early. Real time by the phone, by the time that is up on the wall, is 5 minutes off.
Okay.
Is it illegal by what is being transpired, not giving residents to speak and not giving you the
This
opportunity
meeting
to speak
started
to
at
yourself?
6:30.
Real time is not that clock.
The meeting began at 6:30
By what clock?
by the clock on my phone, which was 6:30.
Your clock is not real time then.
We can agree to disagree,
Okay.
sir, but you would,
That's fine. Thank you, John, again. Thank you.
all right. Was there anything else about the website, John, that you wanted
No.
to speak about? All right. Status update on the Emergency Services Efficiency Committee meetings. The chair of that committee, Mr. Tanaka, is here.
Hi, the town Board of Selectmen established a Emergency Services Efficiency Committee back last August. I was appointed as a member of the Board of Finance, along with several members of both departments. And in the establishment of the original meeting of that, they asked that I come to the Board of Selectmen occasionally to update you on what's going on. We have a 2-year plan. At the time, we decided to spend 14 months determining the plan and then 10 months initiating the plan. I now see that as a little aggressive. Up until the last meeting, I thought we were going to go someplace. The last meeting, I felt we had hit a stop, so I started meeting individually with the committee members. I feel much better now about our ability to get someplace. I think that at this next meeting Wednesday night, which you're all invited to attend, we're going to start narrowing some of our choices, and I think it's more important, it's going to be important in how we achieve our goals as much as the goals we want to achieve. So that's what we're
I just heard you say you were having individual meetings
Yes.
with members
Yes.
of the committee instead
Yes.
of in public.
Yes. We do not, individually, I'm meeting with them one-on-one, so we are not at.
Are you planning to share the information from those?
I am not, because the reason I had those individual meetings was so that the members would have the feeling that they could speak clearly and from the heart without having to share all of their problems with the rest of the committee. And so and the reason I'm meeting with them one-on-one is so that we do not have by any means a quorum. And it is one at a time, and I wanna understand where they're coming from individually. So I know that this may be an issue,
Sure.
but I had to do that to move this committee forward.
I sat through these meetings, and I vetted all of them, and
Yeah.
I thought they were working and having conversations. I thought they were having good conversation and open conversation. So I'm a little disappointed to know that the public isn't going to be privy to all the conversation. I heard you say so that they could speak freely to you and not
Right.
amongst themselves.
Right, I understand that. I just wanted to make sure that, you know, that their vision was consistent with what I thought they were saying. And I'm sorry if that upsets you, but I very much got a lot of valuable information that I was not getting at the meeting on how to move forward, and so I felt it was necessary. Thank you.
Anyone have any questions? Comments?
Yeah, questions?
I'm okay.
No, I think the question of, I know that we're not allowed to meet individually as a board.
Yeah, if you meet individually as a board, you form a quorum.
Well, I can meet with Erica, because we're on the same,
Right.
right?
If we were caucusing.
But I can't meet with John unless it's
Well,
public matter, public record.
there's no caucus because there's no.
But we're not allowed to
It's not a
discuss
business of the
issues.
committee, right?
Yeah, so I'm just wondering, not as like a personal offense,
All right.
but as a legality of them not sharing the results of that publicly. Because I know, we were very clear that like, there was even one moment at like the town meeting a couple of last month, when like the three of us were not allowed to stand together and talk about what to do next, because that would constitute a meeting. So that's just the only
Yeah,
concern
that's,
about
I
the
understand your
conversations
concern,
without-
but that's why I had my meetings one-on-one, is so that we could not form a committee, not form a quorum, so that we could speak openly, so that we could share without political ramifications with
It's not a-
other members,
It's not a
other
political
departments,
board.
and that's,
absolutely understand your
So-
motivation, and I'm not questioning your motivation at all.
that,
I'm questioning whether, like, just again, just being very concerned about the legality of it, but,
that's fine, and
if that's a concern,
if they were
we can talk
illegal
later.
meetings, I would love to see that, where, you know,
it's just a question.
I'd like to see something that says I can't, someplace in writing, someplace, any place, I don't care where.
Well, so we have our town attorney. here.
Napkin.
I asked
So happens.
Ryan
I want to take a look at, I mean, I don't know the specific issue that we're talking about. So we can chat afterward about it. And
All right. We'll chat. Town
Did you
attorney.
meet with every member?
I have not met with every member yet, I haven't had the opportunity, but I plan on it.
Have you had any members say they didn't want to meet with you?
I have not.
Anything else you want to share with us?
No, I just have strong hopes, and I think this is a very aggressive timeline. I don't currently think that we're gonna complete it in 2 years, but I think that it's something that's been ongoing for at least 35 years. At least 35 years,
It predates all of us.
and it may be because we couldn't meet individually and discuss things, but I think I'd really like to move this forward, and if we end up at 0, I'm batting for average, so
Being part of
I'm
that,
just hoping to get ahead
being
of
part
that.
of that committee, can I maybe comment on it? No?
It is an update on the emergency services committee.
So, I think in some parts, meeting with Peter is
Point of
helpful.
order, Is this gentleman on the emergency services?
Yes, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Meeting with Peter was in some ways beneficial, although I think once we're still back in the room, until somebody gives a charge, and unfortunately, I said this to Peter in our meeting, until somebody actually gives a charge, whether the Board of Selectmen, the Board of Finance, somebody actually says, you will do this, we're going to be meeting well past that 2 years.
Oh,
I
I'm
think we
sorry.
did talk about, we
Yeah.
did talk a little bit about that,
Yeah.
about wanting to give you the
Correct.
opportunity to come to
I-
your decision together, and it came up in the
Right.
public meeting.
And I think that's partly what I've come out of with these individual meetings, is that as the only one sitting well, along with yourself, the only ones that represent the town instead of the departments, and what we need there, and talking to other fire chiefs around the area, there's going to need to be, it's not gonna be free, it's not gonna be easy, and I think we're gonna have to come to the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Finance to find some ways of getting some professional help in getting this thing done. And some political will on both boards to apply some pressure. I don't think it's gonna come fully from the departments themselves.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
And you might not, this might be the whole crux of the issue, but I mean, the update's a little bit vague in the sense that, well, so is there a general agreement on what needs to happen?
No.
Okay, so there's,
It's
not a question on how?
Well, there's
The reason
a
that.
general agreement on what, but the vision, the view of what that, so everybody wants Plan A, but everybody's view of Plan A is so different that it's not the same Plan A. So
are
first
they,
we have to
they're
get
so
that
vastly
fixed.
different?
Oh, yes.
Okay, that's,
So, and I think that there's been built up over
Year.
longer than Alex has been alive.
And multiple boards of selectmen,
Multiple boards of selectmen
finance.
and-
no, I
there's
understand
Right,
some.
And
there's
multiple chiefs and multiple memberships. There's
3 studies.
yeah.
Nobody at either of those
There's a wall
tables
of
wanted to
distrust
say,
between the
you have to
two
do this.
departments that needs to be broken down. And it's not gonna be easy, and I see ways forward, but I really rather discuss those with the committee first.
I encourage you all to attend those meetings. They are currently the first and third Wednesday of the month.
Oh, that's the other thing, is
But
that
although
we've
we
been
have-
having
we have some
issues. We had trunk or
holidays
treat, we
and-
had Thanksgiving, we had a town meeting,
We have Christmas.
we had Christmas, we're gonna have I'm
Or
gonna,
I apologize, second and fourth
yeah.
Wednesday of the month, so.
And I think that's, tomorrow I'm gonna ask that we cancel the one on the 25th of this month.
You think?
I don't know that you'll get much
I
pushback,
don't think I'm
but
gonna get a lot of pushback
good
on
luck
that.
with that ask.
Thank you.
Anything else?
No, that's it, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. All right. Chief Moore, you provided us with a state EMS local emergency medical services plan.
Yep, so very briefly, every town has to have an EMS plan on file with the state of Connecticut. This is a boilerplate plan that we generated back and forth with multiple other towns within the county to share how to do this. This is the first one we've been asked to do in quite some time. So it's a lot of stuff that we do now and stuff that we're looking further down, more training and how to get there throughout the years.
So we need to, are you saying we need to adopt this plan?
Yes.
And when's the last time that we did this regularly?
I don't know. I don't know when the last EMS plan was.
Okay. So I know you, same for you, we only received this.
Yes.
This afternoon, so we haven't had a chance.
Nope.
Is there a time frame in which it needs to be?
Sometime before January 1st.
Ain't gonna happen.
Then that's fine. They know it's late.
Okay.
They know it's late, so it's okay.
Okay.
They've already seen it and know what.
Because we haven't had a chance to look
Correct.
at it.
The state's already seen it. They've already sent back their feedback, which has been changed in here, which was just some verbiage for
Okay.
protocols and such. The only thing I did not do was attach all of the attachments, because that's a lot.
Are they all attachments that when
It's,
we agree to allow me to sign this, we are now responsible for?
You will
We
see
should
them.
probably see them.
You will see them before you sign it, how's that? Because there's
I mean,
one,
we should see them
We
before
should
we
see
vote
them.
on them.
yes, yes,
Yeah,
no, I know.
Okay.
So,
There's two that I'm still waiting on, is the problem.
can I ask that you peruse this and we put this on our January 6th agenda, and that if you have any questions for Chief Moore, you go through Robin with them, and she'll get all of the information, so hopefully have all of our questions answered between now and then.
And I will hopefully have the rest of the attachments soon.
Okay. And then as soon as you'll send them to Robin, will send them out to everyone, so hopefully you can spend the holiday time reading this plan and those agendas. Anything else, sir?
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, last item on our agenda, recap of where we are with the school building committee. So, I think we know where we are. The Board of Education went through their study, came with a request to this board to form a school building committee, which we unanimously agreed to do so. I then put items on the call of the town meeting, which I believed were necessary. I believed it then. Then we received some different information, and we didn't then vote unanimously to pull those things from the second town meeting. We've done nothing further with the school building committee since that time. There has been no movement on this whatsoever. I've asked our town attorney to join us this evening so that we can discuss this matter. I stand by the decisions that I made with the advice and knowledge I had at the time. I think we have an obligation to go through this process, make sure we do it right and not fast. And continue to assure that we follow the proper procedures, which is why we haven't moved forward. Since our last meeting, I've attended a workshop, several workshop sessions, and met today with some state officials at DAS to really try to understand a pretty complicated process, so that no matter what the townspeople decide, we are following the proper process. I hear people and they're called to want to have the discussion. I think they are correct in that, and I hear that and I understand where you're at. We didn't pull it so that we couldn't have the conversation. They weren't on the agenda on the town meeting because we didn't believe we needed to in order to move forward. What I have since learned is that in order to apply for any school construction grant and get reimbursement, not all of the items we had on the agenda of the call meeting needs to be there, but there needed to be the establishment of the committee, and then some language around allowing the Board of Education through their superintendent to apply for a grant and what you're applying for. Doesn't mean you have a big project. It could simply say, in this case, and I'm just using general language, this is not necessarily what we would advise, a pre-K through 8 school. Wouldn't necessarily say pre-K through 8 school, because then if the town decided they wanted something else, your resolution locked you into only what you went to town meeting with. But if the school building committee, we appointed people, which we, correct me, Brian from Wrong Advice, was we established the committee, we can in fact appoint people to it. If that committee decides they want to or need to spend money on an architect or an owner's rep to find land to see if this process is feasible, without that town meeting process to start with, we could not make that expense reimbursable. So if you spent $10,000, which I think would be a low amount for an architect, you couldn't put it in the grant for a new school, if in fact a new school is what comes out of it. The only way to do that is to have gone to town meeting with these items. Is what I'm saying making understand?
I think so.
Okay, so there's no boilerplate. Here's what you do. Here's steps 1 through 10. You must follow them in this order. It is a complex situation, which we have not been through before, and just trying to make sure we do the right thing and have the right conversations. At no time could we build a new school and spend townspeople's money without going to multiple, either town meetings and referendums, and discussion be held. That was never the intent, that was never the discussion. It was simply, we didn't believe at the time, Liza and I, with the information we got from Ryan, believed that we needed to ask the town's permission to appoint people to a committee. They can't do anything and build a school if we don't go to the town. They couldn't hire an architect and then get that money paid back. If the Board of Finance gave them funding, it would simply be money out of the town's pocket. It would not be part of a reimbursable expense. I think it's important that that anything we go through, if it ever got to the point where the town decided a new school of whatever capacity is what they wanted, then we make sure we do things exactly as they need to be done and make sure we have all of the right steps done, which is why, taking a step back, and I didn't suggest at this meeting that we appoint people to this committee.
Okay, so at this moment, there's no action. This is a recap, so
Right.
there's no action, there's no.
Right. I'm not
proposal
suggesting
of
that
an
we,
action
I'm actually
moment.
saying we should not appoint people until we take the question to a town meeting. That's what I'm saying. I'm saying that once people are appointed to that committee, if there's any expenses incurred as part of a school building committee, they cannot be part of a state grant application after the fact.
But we're not talking about the same question that was posed prior, right? That's what you're saying, is that there needs to be more conversation about what the actual language is?
Yes, right, so we were asking 3 questions, allowing us to appoint people, fill vacancies, and present a charge.
And how are we going to figure out what that language is and needs to be?
So the first one is simple in forming of the school building committee. The extra pieces don't necessarily need to go to town meeting. And then we would need to do some work on making sure we had the second resolution as part of any grant application be accurate before we ask the question. So DAS, who I met with this morning, and with our town attorney, that's who you work with, establishing those particular items. Ryan, you want?
Sure, yeah, so when we first broached the subject, it was a question of a committee. It seemed to be a pretty basic question off the cuff, and the advice that I provided and that we discussed was accurate for forming a town committee. But it didn't, I should look farther down the road and say, okay, so where do we go in a year, 2 years, and where does the conversation take us? Now, we could have a second referendum down the road. There's nothing illegal about the way that we had set it up, and just a more complicated way than it needed to be. I think obviously the most efficient way of doing this is to have a committee that's authorized to get the reimbursement, as opposed to a committee that's not authorized to get a reimbursement, and then the ball moves further down the road, and you have to go back and try to get the reimbursement, but it wasn't authorized off the jump. It makes the process far more complicated than it needs to be. So, Erica, I think, correctly spoke to the state and found out there's a more streamlined way to do this. It might take a little bit longer up front, but I think it's better to spend a little bit extra time in the beginning than to have a more complicated process down the road. So I think that was the right call to make. From a legal standpoint, there was never any questions about the legality of it. It's just a question of what's the most effective way to set this up. I think Erica made the right call in postponing it and going back and saying we want to make sure this board is fully authorized, this committee is fully authorized to get reimbursed and not have any questions about that down the road.
Ryan, I know the talk in the town prior to the town meeting was people were opposed to this on the grounds that they're opposed to the decision made by the Board of Education to go for the Grand Kahuna, the brand new school and all that.
Right.
If this had gone hypothetically, if this had gone to town meeting
Right.
and been defeated in town meeting, where would we stand now?
Back to the drawing board.
Okay?
If it gets defeated in town meeting, it's, yeah.
Right, does it go back to the, we've never been through this process,
Right,
so, again, I'll go back to mine, let's make sure at this point we do it right, not fast.
Right.
The question can come up again,
It can come up again.
does it have to go back through the Board of Education process again?
I think the board has to reauthorize at that
Okay.
point. They have to say, oh, you know, you can't just keep on bringing, I think they need to go, basically, it's then defeated at town meeting, and then the question is, it goes back to the board, does the board choose to then reauthorize it? And then it goes back to town meeting, we could do that ping pong forever.
Okay, you say the board reauthorize or the board go back and make another choice?
They can make another choice. I mean, and again, some of those are questions for the board and its attorney. You know, I don't want to tell the board how to do its job or suggest how it should act. That wouldn't be proper in this case.
Right, well, all I'm saying is that this never went before the Board of Finance, went through the Board of Ed, who made their decision.
Right.
And there were other decisions that other people might have wanted, and here was a chance to bring it to the people and see what they wanted to do.
Right.
And now that chance is not here, and we're going to go ahead and we're going to form a committee. And at what point then?
Well, we would have had a committee before, it just couldn't have, it would have been more difficult to get reimbursed, if not impossible.
Right.
You know, and there could have been another.
And that's only if a school project was actually voted in favor of by the
Right,
town.
right.
If that never happened, there was no reimbursement to look for.
Right, you're just forming a committee to basically, I don't want to call it an exploratory committee, because it's more than that, but it's, voting on forming a committee is a very different animal from starting to build a school. You know, there's a pretty big gap between those two projects. So it's, you know, it's not like at any time, there's significant hurdles that get cleared from the time the committee is seated to when the shovel goes into the ground, right? So it's not like anything we do at this stage guarantees it happens one way or the other anyway.
Because the questions that we originally were posing at town meeting were simply forming the committee, or around forming the committee, it had nothing to do with actually spending dollars to build a new school, which is why
Right,
nothing
two
went
full
from the
different-
Board of Ed or us to the Board of Finance. There was nothing to take to them
Yeah.
at that point. We didn't have anything to take before the Board of Finance. It would have had to come out of that committee once
And
it was
so
formed.
the initial question was a very narrow one of, you know, can we legally form a committee? And that was really
Right.
the scope of the question. I said, you know, here's how we do that. And then when it became, well, let's take a broader view of this and down the road, what if we actually have to build the school? How do we get reimbursed? We should probably tweak the committee process. It seems sensible to do that as opposed to getting further down the road and saying, oh, you know, we kind of wish we had done it differently from the jump. Again, not from a legal or illegal standpoint, but just from a, you know, what's the most efficient way to go about doing this?
You know, I can tell you from the workshop, I was at the CCM convention that I sat in a workshop that specifically was talking about municipal building, whether it be a school or a town hall or a public works garage. And if you're looking at grant receiving, one of the first things they said in the meeting, and it stuck with me the whole time, was you need to go through a town meeting before you can do anything, before you can spend any money. And so we could appoint people, is what I had heard from Ryan, is you can appoint people to this and they can begin to meet and do work.
Yeah.
But as soon as you want to spend money, this is what we should do. And so that when and if you do go for a school construction grant, it's reimbursable and part of that process. So it made me really, two things wish, 3 months ago, in September, when this came to us, that was something that had been spelled out very clear, and I think we would have gone down a very different path and had a very different conversation. Again, I stand by the votes I made, the decisions I made with the information and advice I had at the time. I think there's oftentimes you find a case of, if I knew then what I know now, how would we do things? And again, I'll continue to say, right, not fast. And this is all something that we have to take to the townspeople. John, I hear you say that you felt like you heard a lot of discussion from people in town. That wasn't what they wanted, they didn't like what came out of the school board. I've heard a mix. I've heard that argument and I've heard the other side. So I think there's I don't know what balance of people in the town that is, everyone certainly has,
That's why if it had
Different
gone to
views.
town meeting,
Correct.
we would have had it, we would have known.
I understand that, but, and it's still, for the things we need to do, the questions that we were taking to town meeting, they were based on what we've taken to town meeting in the past. I don't believe they were adequate resolutions in order, if that committee had said, hey, we want to hire, as they did in 1990 when they had a large building committee looking at a potential new building, hiring an architect. We weren't asking the question that would allow us to make that part of a reimbursable process. And I know that now, and I had the conversation with Brian about that and how we got to where we were and what the right thing to do is. And so I feel that we didn't necessarily do a wrong thing. We did what we believed, a step we didn't need to take, and that we were going through a step we didn't need to take. And now I realize that we do actually need to have a discussion at town meeting in order to form that committee if we want to spend funds that's part of a grant.
So, and I think I mentioned this last meeting, and I'm gonna mention it again. It's frustrating for me, and I'm assuming for all three of us, but I'll speak only from my perspective. It is very frustrating because each time we're making a decision, we're making it under these new assumptions of what we believe the policy and procedure to be. This is the third time we're having this conversation. And so each time we have the conversation, I lose confidence that we are receiving the actual factual information that allows me to make the best decision possible. So it's very frustrating to continue having the conversation and to lose a little bit of confidence that we do actually now, today, have the actual final 100% updated information. So at what point do we know? Because I'm confused now, and I'm sure if we go back to the town is gonna be even more confused. And I agree with absolutely what you're saying with the do it right instead of fast. I agree with that. We have to figure out a way that we can be confident in the information with which we're working, because right now it's the third set of input of data that we've had, and what if there's a fourth set?
I think that, so for me, I understand where you're at, because I feel a little bit of the same way. And it's me who's made some of these suggestions, so I'm putting it out there saying this is what I believe to be the right thing right now. Which is why you're not hearing me say, we need to go to town meeting, here are the questions, because I think it's gonna take a little bit more time. I don't know if the Board of Ed is thinking that we're gonna move in a faster pace than this, because they were ready and they were done with it, but I think we need to take a little bit more time, make sure we're doing the right steps on our end, and not sure it's out of their hands at this point and at the town side. So I do believe the conversation still needs to be had at a town meeting. It's a matter of what those questions are, and if we move them in that direction, that we have the right questions.
So we would be still having a town meeting before we appoint this committee?
I would, that is my recommendation now, John, yes. I believe, again, Ryan has shared with us that as far as a town committee, we have the right to appoint them, as we did the Emergency Services Committee, but the work that they can do and the spending in which they can do, if it's ever tied to a school building project, ties their hands and actually spends more money from the town's perspective, because it wouldn't be eligible. I don't know that any of the professionals in these meetings that I went to, did I hear, if you go back and ask, they all kind of said it's possible, but it's certainly not recommended, so I would not recommend that we appoint anyone to the school business committee. And we haven't told anyone they would be. We haven't spoken to anyone about being on that committee, told anyone that they would be. So we haven't moved in that direction. So I believe that, yes, we should stop and move those questions to town meeting, but make sure we have the right questions and what we're asking, that Brian, do you still feel that we don't necessarily need to ask the same set of questions that we asked before?
We do not need to ask the same set of questions.
And DAS did say that they know in order to give you funding, if you got to the point where you're saying, we're gonna build a new school and we're gonna get approval on a grant, they're very, I won't say very specific questions, the context of it has to be very specific, because everyone's question as to what you're building is gonna be a little bit different, but the crux of it is pretty simple. They did say they'd be willing to help us, along with our attorney, with that language, so that
What was that again?
DAS, and that's in school, and school of, well, I call them Oscar, so it's school construction grant,
Because that was gonna be my,
reimbursement and review.
that was gonna be my question is, who is the person or organization that tells us what language to use? Is it you?
Well, I would like to work with, I would work with the state on this one. You know, from my perspective, it's a threshold. The questions are, you know, I'm a lawyer, and so the questions are, is this legal, is this not legal, can we do this? And, you know, so the answer is yes or no, or maybe, and here's why. The question once you get beyond the question of legality, then the state needs to get involved. And we need to say, you know, how do we formulate these questions? You know, what's the best way to do it so we can get the grants, things like that. That's sort of that next level of questions. And I can work with them to bring them into our process, because, you know, every town works differently, so a town that maybe has certain charter requirements will be different than Wilmington, right? So knowing how our town government works, I can work with the state to just facilitate the transfer of information and make sure we have the right process. You know, I think when we started this, again, the idea was, let's form a committee. Pretty simple thing. When it comes to let's get reimbursed from grants at a state level, and the state gets involved, you know, John, I know that you appreciate how complicated things can get at the state level. Then I think it's time to actually work with the state so that, you know, we make sure we're getting all the right information. Absolutely.
I think we need to also perhaps have that group meet with at least us, even if it's part of a town meeting or a
I can see if they would be willing
or
to.
something, because again, because we're, you know, we hear, at this level, we're hearing so secondhand translated information from you, and
Because they're not committing to anything, this is where your application for a grant would go, it goes to their office.
Yeah.
And so they're the ones who say you have to have A, B, and C. So what they, in the discussions we had today was just a little bit of helping us understand the procedure, and know what it's like, and you know, what I heard was also, if you go to town with a resolution and the question is, you know, should the townspeople, you know, authorize to build a pre-K through 8 school at 40 Old Farms Road and this size and this size and this size, and then the town decides they want something different, we can't. You now have to go back and start over again, so it's, until you have to start with, it would be a more broad question. When you have a project, when that school building committee, once they're established through this work, and they've done the work, it now is not the Board of Selectmen calling a town meeting, we would be calling a town meeting, but the conversation would be coming from the school building committee at that point. And then they would have a very specific project that would have very specific language, and then that would need to be the questions that go through town meeting and referendum. So it's a multi-layered, multi-step process, that they're willing to.
And I understand all that.
Right, if they'd be willing to help us with that, I can certainly ask if they'd be willing to come out, I don't.
Can people silence their cell phones, please?
Wasn't me. Usually it is.
Worst case scenario, we can go see them if we have to.
Okay.
Yeah,
They're always happy to have people come see them.
Right.
They're more resistant to coming out to see the people.
That's,
it's unfortunate.
It's how the state runs, unfortunately.
and
So-
I'm pretty sure they're a daytime kind of organization.
Yeah, they're pretty much the daytime crew over there. So that's, if we have to go down there and sit down and say, look, you know, here's how things work in our town, and here's your process, how can we take your process and fit it into how our town works?
Right. And that's the other key, because our town and your town are very different.
Right.
And you know, a charter that says you have to do A, B, and C in this order, and then some of the other things are, as as clear if you haven't been through the process. And I just want to make sure we do the right thing and we have the right conversations and we afford people the conversation. And what I want to reiterate again is taking those items off a town meeting was never going to force a school building, was never going to force the building of anything. We do not have the authority to do so. That was never the intent, or do we have the ability? It was simply appointing a committee because I believe that we had the authority to do so. And we do, we see in other committees that we do have the authority to do. This one's a little bit more complicated, and the work that they do requires a lot more and a lot more of the townspeople's input.
If anything, slow the process down, actually.
Correct.
So, now we're slow walking.
Any other questions, comments, concerns?
How about this?
Good and welfare. I'm going to reiterate once again, we still have 2 openings for CIP. CIP will begin in January. So come one, come all. You can reach out to Robin in the Selectman's office. And our town department's CIP requests are due to Donna by December 3rd, 2020. January 3rd, sorry. Oh, Robin, this is really gonna test me. Our monthly report, our monthly report from Troop C, we had a total of, you wanna take a shot? 397 calls in November.
I can do it.
11 of them were accidents, 13, right, you have younger eye. 13 criminal investigations. I believe we had no burglaries, it was left blank. 2 larcenies, 221 reportable matters, and 2 arrests. Motor vehicle enforcement, total traffic stops in the month of November were 100 and, let's call it about 150. 1 DUI, no arrests, 5 misdemeanor summons, 100.
Okay.
It says blank. So,
All right, no, kind of surprising.
5 misdemeanor summons, 113 infractions, 12 written warnings, and 20 verbal warnings. And I will once again mention the need to be vigilant of your property and especially your vehicles, lock them. I think Mr. Tinoco would probably agree with me as a police officer. Lock them, do not leave your valuables inside. There was an incident in Mansfield this morning where a car was stolen. The individual left the car running, went back inside to grab his belongings for work, warming up his car, and his car was stolen when he went back inside this morning, daylight. So still, not just during the holidays or not just for a few months, but all the time, Troop C is still seeing instances of people going out. The town annual tree lighting was another success. The snow just made it an even prettier New England event, so I want to thank Maureen and Jenny and their departments for all the work they did on that, and thank you to Alex and WIllington BOS for helping us with lights out there. I think it made a bigger difference being able to see on the green. So, and we don't meet again until January 6th, so I'll take the opportunity to wish everyone a happy holidays.
Yes, I just want to say I'm a little bit discombobulated here and a little bit disappointed in this apparently new policy that we have. Since time immemorial, we've invited the audience to participate in the discussions with the Board of Selectmen. And I think it makes for more informative meetings, better meetings, helps us keep up with what the people are thinking. And now tonight, all of a sudden, it's a closed meeting, such as the Board of Education has always had, and I've always hated that because the board sits there and imparts their wisdom to the audience. I would like to rethink that. I know it makes sometimes for loud meetings, uncomfortable meetings, sometimes hostile meetings, but they're informative meetings. And so I'd like to go back to the old policy.
Anything else?
Thank you, John. It's nice after hearing,
Can
we
I
hear
have-
three
Yeah,
different
respond.
ways
I'm
that
really-
the board can't come up with a solution. It's very thoughtful what you're saying, John. Thank you.
Right. Just- We are apparently under this policy tonight.
We are still a meeting in public, not a public meeting, so what, the process is not, it's not as though
It's how we choose to do it. That's, it's not illegal the way we have done, it's not illegal the way we're doing it tonight. I just think the old way is better.
Can we put this on our agenda as conversation for next meeting, because I do think that there's some conversation to be had on stuff.
Sure.
I think that would make sense. So for our January meeting, we can start the year off talking about how we can do it better. Does that make sense?
Makes sense to me.
Makes sense to me.
Seeing nothing else, I'll motion to adjourn at 7:35.